ham in our lives. Let's be honest.
And here he comes. I'm sure you can hear him.
Oh, I
Jeez,
hear him.
goodness gracious, buddy. He had a bone. I had to take it away from him. He had a bone. And are we recording?
Yeah, I already hit the button. We're live.
Great. We had a bone, and he's just literally. I'm trying to do my own like little recording, and he's kicking it around the hardwood floor, and that's all you can hear the entire time.
You know what? It
What an
just
idiot.
it makes for real content though, right?
That's a day in a life. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I was late because I had to drop off from wrestling. So
I mean, that's cool though.
do what
Also,
we can.
I guess, yeah.
So the week in review, obviously, slightly disappointed that we couldn't get the guest that I wanted, but he's a man that's very busy, does a lot of things, wears a lot of hats. So it's just you and me again. And I thought something fun to start with.
Oh, here we go.
What?
I said, here we go. This is going to be fun. I have a feeling.
Oh, I was like, what the fuck? Let's start with the CFP, the College Football Playoff.
Sure.
So I have my own thoughts on it. By the way, Bears by a billion always.
Yes.
So I have my own thoughts on the College Football Playoff, but let's shoot it to you first. For everybody who already knows, Michigan, Alabama is one game. Texas, Washington's the other game. I would like to just go into our thoughts on this, both positive and negative, and then, what I'm going to do is actually put a Q&A on this podcast episode and see, kind of what people's inputs is as well. So, what's your thoughts of the CFP?
I think they got it right. I think they did. So I get it. I guess that's the negative of a four-game college football playoff, but
14.
Number 14 is 14 college football playoff.
Q talk good.
Q talk.
Q talk good.
And I understand why. I mean, of course, I do understand why a Power 5 conference champion team would be upset that they didn't get in, but we can't. Well, I say, but the college football playoff can't afford to have another bust game like they did in the championship game last year. It just wasn't fun. No one watched it. I'm sure they took a hit. It's a vastly different team when your starting quarterback goes down. I think that's just the obvious. Now that sucks that a conference champion Power 5 school got left out, but it's 14, like we said. It's called Power 5. So, one team's going to get left out probably every single year.
Right.
This year just happened to be a little bit more egregious. It's not going to matter next year, which I have my own thoughts on, but it is what
same.
it is.
Yeah, I kind of hover on both sides of this thing. I'm gonna actually put my glasses on because my eyes are fucking me. My blue light blockers.
Same.
Yeah, so I have my own thoughts on this too, actually, and I do think they got it right from the standpoint of business, because as shitty as it is to say, like, Jordan Travis is going to make Florida State watchable, and watchable means more money. So I get it from that standpoint, and I think they absolutely got it right. Now, where I have been kind of like playing the what if scenario, and you mentioned like the 12 team scenario, the 12 team that it goes to next year, which is going to be awesome, by the way. The only question I can ask, and tell me your input on this. So Michigan's an automatic, winning the Big Ten undefeated. Washington's an automatic, winning the Pac-12, which this was a strong year for the Pac-12. So the Pac-12 undefeated champion is in. Texas and Alabama. Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa early. Texas lost late to Oklahoma. Weighing those two games, and like historically speaking, teams say it's better to lose early than it is to lose late. So that would favor Alabama, plus beating Georgia. However, Texas being Texas, we talked about the money aspect. When Texas is good, college football is good. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
So if you were to take one team out, who would you put in? And and it doesn't matter order 1 through 4 because all that's bullshit anyway. But like, let's say you're going to take one team out. Because honestly, if I'm going to take one team out, it probably to many people's surprise is going to be Alabama. Purely because they did lose to Texas. Yes, it was early in the season, but Texas, to me, should be in over them, I think. And I think, honestly, I put in Florida State because they are undefeated. But Jordan Travis injury, I honestly probably put Oregon in.
Oh, wow. Well, over Florida State, you're saying?
If you're not going to, like, let's just say if for some reason you're not going to put Florida State in purely from the standpoint of, Jordan Travis out, that kind of thing,
Oh,
I think they should be in if you're going to take one team out. But then you kind of look at like Oregon, Ohio State. I don't know, as much as a Ohio State fan as I am, I don't know if they should deserve to be in this year. It's I don't know, it's weird, but like, who would you take out and who would you put in, if anything?
I mean, sorry, I was running over, but you'd have to put in Florida State, I think, and then you'd have to take out Alabama just because the heads up play, Texas and Alabama. I understand it happened early in the year, and it's completely different team than they were when they lost that game. Like Jalen Monroe, that's his name, right?
Yeah, Milroe.
Milroe. Maybe he might not be the most accurate quarterback I've ever seen.
He
in my
looks
life.
awesome right now.
That dude is special as far as athlete department. I mean, I don't disagree with you. You can't put in a 2-loss team though, so Oregon can't go in.
Yeah.
Ohio State's got the worst, or I'm sorry, they have the best loss. Loss. I mean, you lost to the number 3 team at home, and it came down to the last 30 seconds and an unfortunate pick, So they have the best, but Florida State would go in, but then they would get matched up with whomever, and then you got to talk about Georgia. I mean, I don't know how far they are. You can't drop them that far from 1 to whatever they went. I mean, this is where 12 team would be awesome. I believe
Georgia's 5 right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. That's, this is where the 12 team playoff would be awesome, but where it's not going to be awesome. What? Other 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's not going to be awesome is Ohio State, Michigan, outside of the rivalry, doesn't matter this year. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It doesn't matter. Oregon, Washington, doesn't matter. They're both in. Yeah. Georgia, Alabama, doesn't matter. They're both in.
Well, hold on, because Texas moves to the SEC next year.
Yeah, I'm just strictly talking this year in this scenario.
Oh, sure, got it.
They don't matter. I mean, you look at the perennial powerhouses. Unfortunately, they're going to get in whether they have a loss or not. They can't afford, like you said, they can't afford to let Texas or Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama or Georgia not in a 12-team playoff strictly due to revenue, and they only have 1 loss. And let's be real, the SEC is probably the 2nd or 3rd best conference this year. But they had cupcake schedule.
Who do you think would be ahead of them? Is Big Ten ahead of them this year?
Maybe potentially. You can make the argument. Ohio State and Michigan are good, and then Penn State's a top 10 team right there.
I mean,
their defense is good. If their quarterback's going to be good too, he's just young. I think they're going to be good.
I mean, so I do agree. I think so. When you said, SEC is not the top conference this year, I've actually made that claim too, and I think
the Pac-12 is definitely the top conference, most definitely. I just think
it's between Pac-12 and Big Ten for sure. I mean, you could probably tip the scale either way, and you're not going to hear complaining from me.
I just think Oregon or Washington, and I'm an Ohio State fan, I think they beat Michigan and Ohio State like the majority of the time. It's 6 or 7 times out of 10. Just because they're so explosive, but then again, you're not used to Big Ten defenses, so I don't.
Right, and I think it's been good for college football, honestly, to see the scale tip a little bit, where it's not just SEC dominant. And and let's be honest, you still had LSU. They were 9-3. They were still really strong. Ole Miss is 10-2. Yeah, Jaden Daniels is unreal. Ole Miss is 10-2. They play Penn State in the bowl game, which I think is going to be one of the best bowl games to watch, to be quite honest. And Tennessee was in the top 25, and it's like I'm
Almost
glad. I'm almost
Mizzou.
glad. What's that?
I don't know if you said Mizzou or not, but
Oh yeah,
Mizzou. I
Mizzou.
mean,
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I forgot about
they're
them.
playing Ohio State, and they'll
Yeah,
probably beat Ohio State because they don't have a starting quarterback. Whether McCord is average or not, they're going to play their backup quarterback, and that's not
yeah, and I don't think
ideal.
Marvin's going to play either.
It would be stupid if he played. It'd be
Yeah.
really stupid.
But what I think is good is that I'm a fan of the transfer portal, number one, because I think it allows for a Jaden Daniels to go from Arizona State where he wasn't going to get anything, to go to LSU, shine, win a Heisman, improve his draft stock. It allows for Michael Penix to go from Indiana to Washington and do the same thing. It allows
Bo
for
Nix.
Bo Nix, Kyle McCord. People were shitting on Kyle McCord for going to the transfer portal. You know what? Good for him. He's going to go somewhere. He's not guaranteed the starting job at Ohio State because they have Air Nolan coming in as a true freshman who's probably going to win it. He's the number 2 quarterback in the country behind Dylan Raiola. And good for McCord. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to be great. He had a great season. I can't dump on a guy who's A, going to go somewhere to do more athletically, but B, he's going to make more money.
I agree. I mean, I think there's got to be a little bit of, I don't know. I don't know enough about the transfer portal, I'll be honest with you. So I think there needs to be maybe a couple different parameters, and I'm not sure what those are going to be. But you're right. It does give people I mean, look at the Heisman. The 3 of the 4 Heisman are transfers or Heisman candidates.
Yeah.
So I think that's very fair. Also, we need to stop with the AP Player of the Year, the Heisman, the best quarterback of the year. Can we just make one award and let's be objective? Like, who's the best player in the country? It's most likely going to be a quarterback. I understand that, but I think they said like Ndamukong Suh, remember his last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could point to a more dominant college football player in that year.
Yeah,
and he's not going to win it ever. I think they either need to just have one award, that's the Heisman, or 2 separate awards, and one's just as big, almost as big as the Heisman, but one's like a quarterback, the most outstanding quarterback.
Just do it like the NFL does. They do MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. Do that,
Right?
And then you have a Sue get recognized. You have who was the kid? There was a guy, defensive player, a couple years back who was in the running for the Heisman, who was going to have no chance, but he was like the most dominant guy on that side of the football. I'm blanking on the name right now, and I feel stupid for it. But then I literally can't remember. But then you also have the recognition of so Marv wasn't going to win the Heisman this year, but he probably could have won Offensive Player of the Year, or Penix or somebody, and you still recognize the achievement. Just like, a receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson's never going to win MVP. It's always going to be a quarterback award, but he won Offensive Player of the Year, deservedly so. As messed up as it is to say, I don't think Christian McCaffrey will win the MVP when he probably should, but he'll probably win Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's hard to argue against Dak right now if we're talking NFL or Purdy. I'm cool with either of those, but you're right. I mean,
it's always going to be a quarterback award.
That sucks. I don't like that. It is the most important. It's the most important position in sports. Let's be clear.
Correct.
I mean,
in all major sports.
I don't think it's even close. I'm going to be honest.
No. As valuable as LeBron James is in the NBA, the quarterback is more valuable in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron. If we're being, and we're an echo chamber here because we're both LeBron guys, but LeBron should have 13 MVPs. But they know that they can't for the sake of redundancy. I could just understand.
Honestly, Peyton Manning probably should have had 7 MVPs in the NFL.
100%.
But yeah, the redundancy, it's the business. It all comes down to money, which is fine because these are businesses. And, now with NILs and everything like that, it's being treated as such, which I'm glad for. I think the NIL should have been rolled out a little bit differently, because I think that, and I'm getting on a tangent here, but they rolled it out like this, where everything is able to be done. And they should have probably started in a parameter here and kind of like tiered it out stair step to where they had more and more and more available. Because the NIL's money. I actually coach a guy who's on the NIL board at Western Michigan, his school. And I've learned a lot about it, how it works, and like how they're able to disperse these funds and collect these funds. And he's even like, it's great, but what they did was they just said, here you go, you can pay these kids whatever you want, instead of like talking about, okay, we're going to do tiers of how much money these kids can actually make, see how it works, see how everything goes for the schools, for the conferences, things like that. Because some of these conferences, like the Big Ten, shares revenue equally among the schools. They don't disperse from best to worst. Not all conferences do that. So that screws. That's what's that?
I don't know how I feel about that.
For which side?
I don't think. I think Ohio State and Michigan should get the majority of the money. I do. I just do.
I agree.
They've just been set up. Well, no, they haven't. They put themselves in the position, but I understand where that's coming from. Do you know which conferences off the top of your head don't do that? Is it the SEC?
I don't think the SEC does, and I don't believe the Big 12 does. And I could be wrong. Anybody listening, watching, please feel free to correct me in the comments and in an email, whatever. But I know specifically the Big 10 does that. The example being, they've tried to invite Notre Dame to join the conference many times. Notre Dame has a private TV contract that they don't want to give up because they don't want to share revenue with the other schools. I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
I see Notre Dame wants to keep their money. I see why the Big Ten wants Notre Dame.
Yep.
Both of it makes sense. I don't know how to.
Don't they have the largest fan base too, like Notre Dame?
Yeah.
It wouldn't spread. So yeah, I mean, that's wild. I guess kind of pivoting, but like the NIL. Speaking of, did you see like Marvin Harrison was like hinting at that he could stay and that
and make more money?
Yeah, and then like 20 million or something. That's ridiculous. Like, that's ridiculous. That dude seems like a great kid, and he's got and he doesn't need to worry about money necessarily. His own money, sure.
Right.
But his father, as we know, was a pretty successful wide receiver.
Kind of.
He was okay. Yeah, just okay. But this is a different conversation for a different day. The NIL to me is a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I wonder if it kind of devalues football. You know what I mean? Like someone can be so good. Like Jamarcus Russell is almost my favorite example for this.
Sure.
If Jamarcus Russell was guaranteed money, which I almost guarantee he was at the time, although it was illegal, he's I guess that if you run back his history, he was lazy. He really was. And I don't mean any disrespect, obviously, but he was a lazy dude, never watched film, whatever. And can you imagine if he was given, $2 million in like, what is he going to do in the comp? Like, what is he going to even get drafted? Is he going to throw his life away because he's got $2 million from NIL?
Yeah. And that's kind of where like my client and myself have talked about it, where like, had they rolled it out in a way where they established like financial management in these programs, because a good example is
it's got to happen.
God, what's her name? Angel Reese, basketball player from LSU. She had a chance to go like number 1 or number 2 in the draft in the WNBA, and she chose to go back to LSU because she was going to make more money in her senior year through her NIL deal than she would in the WNBA contract. I have the utmost respect for that. Do what you got to do to set yourself up.
You got to make money.
Right. So the NIL, with the lack, and I might just be speaking out of my ass, but what I perceive as the lack of like financial management for these players, for these kids, like mandatory financial management, is what scares me. And I think that's where like the tiers would have helped, of like, you're only allowed to give X amount of dollars to this player, and you could tier it by like 5-star Heisman candidate, however you want to do it. And maybe that saves some of this, because there was also a kid who got offered, I want to say it was like $11 million in NIL money to play quarterback at Florida. decommitted because he got offered more money elsewhere. And I want to say it was one of the California schools. I might be wrong, but decommitted because he got more money offered elsewhere. So to your point, does that devalue the athletics, or is that putting more value on him as an athlete to set himself up in case his athletic career doesn't work? I don't know.
I don't know if it's going to. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to. You see, kind of like these mid, like let's say mid-level D1 schools, like well-known program, Nebraska. Matt Rule. He's very outspoken. He does not like the transfer portal.
Hates it.
Yeah, because I see his point too. It's like,
sure,
you know, they're in the Big Ten. They're not going to get the people that Ohio State or Michigan get. They're just not. They're never going to. And that could be the same argument towards these NIL deals. Like they're not going to get allocated the same amount of if you're the big shot in Nebraska, you grew up and you want to go to Nebraska because your dad did, and you're legit at football, you're going to be incentivized to go to Ohio State or Michigan because you're going to make X amount of more money. Not Nebraska. Nebraska is going to always perpetually suck. Which, by the way, they suck. And
they're bad. They're ass.
They do. I think Matt Rule's a good like a good college coach, and I think they'll be fine. But
I'm glad you put college coach in there because he was really bad at Carolina.
Yeah, it's weird like that. You know, Saban wasn't great.
Terrible.
Friggin' or Urban Meyer seemed to be checked out immediately when he got paid. I love Urban Meyer.
The only one that's really done it is Pete Carroll. He's done a really good job of it.
Pete Carroll might be the GOAT.
And maybe Harbaugh, honestly. Harbaugh, love him or hate him, he did really well in the NFL.
Of course he did. He had a
but
great team too.
I would ask this, and then we'll move on to our next topic, but do you think it also maybe devalues the coaching? Because if you're going to a place where you're not going to be getting these guys who are hyper valued by their NIL money, what does that do for you as a coach? Like, are you just assuming that you're going to be a bottom feeding team in your conference? Like, how does that value your, the ability to recruit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna take over for Matt Rule at Nebraska, like, what is your thought walking into that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Tom Brady came out and he said like there's a lot of mediocrity in the in the NFL. I think it's a direct correlation to and it's not all causation, but direct correlation from the coaching in college.
Sure.
Obviously, right, to the NFL. They're not teaching the fundamentals. And listen, I'm not a dude. I'm just a dude talking out of my ass right now. I'm presenting theories because I'm not in these giant organizations, but kind of my favorite example is like Deion Sanders. I think you're going to go to Colorado because it's Deion Sanders and there's a giant hype. We have no idea if Deion Sanders is a good coach or not. I mean, let's just be clear. I don't.
Personally,
I mean, I'm sure I'm sure he can coach, but this is a rant by Quentin White. There's nothing more than I loved watching them lose. And I'll tell you why. Not because of Deion Sanders, not because there was a graphic that came out like after week 3 or some shit when Colorado was winning and they were undefeated or something. And they beat K-State or TCU. I'm sorry. TCU. And there's a graphic that came out and said, who wins 2019 LSU or this 2023 Colorado team?
They'd get blown out.
And that's when I figured out. I was like, oh, I no longer like this bandwagon fan base. I can't stand it. And that's not Deion's fault or anything. Of course, right. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, oh, I want them to burn.
Yeah, but that's the problem with people that don't understand value of talent versus production on the field, or how that necessarily isn't indicative of one or the other, but is caused by the other, or can be like a correlation, of the other. And it's like, look, Colorado, for what they were, they had a fine season. They literally won one game last year, and they were competitive in a very tough Pac-12 conference this year. I think Deion can coach. I think next year they will be bowl eligible, 7-8 wins. Personally, I think that.
I don't know. I mean, you're
However,
losing your quarterback.
yeah, well, maybe not.
He's a redeeming. He's not going.
He might not. He might not leave. He hasn't declared yet. But then there's the fact of like, yeah, the 2019 LSU team was arguably the best team ever in college football.
I think. Well, again, how old am I? I don't know. I'm a youngin, but I think it's the best offense I've ever watched.
Yeah,
I mean,
like ever.
quite honestly, yeah.
And
Um,
that's '05 Trojans, '05 Longhorns, like all those Alabama teams. Like,
does that Miami team beat them? I think so. I
oh
think that
man,
Miami team beats everyone.
that Miami team was nasty, and the
I think that
Buckeye
Miami
team
team,
actually, the Buckeye team back in 01 or 02 was nasty too when they played in the national championship.
right? I
And
think.
Miami won, unfortunately, but you know it is what it is.
Uh, I
Eh,
think. I think they beat the Panthers right now. No, I'm just kidding. I do not think that.
That's a good time for us to pivot to the next topic here.
Here we go.
Let's briefly touch on this. We did mention LeBron. Let's mention the in-season tournament. I, for one, am going to say I was wrong about it. I thought it was going to be stupid when it first came out. I loved it. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. I thought it was awesome. I mean, you and I both know how much of LeBron fans we are. The in-season tournament doesn't solidify it for me. This season solidifies it for me. If you can't come at somebody with 6-0 in the finals, if you can't come at somebody with anything other than 6-0 in the finals, which by the way, John Havlicek was 8-0 in the finals, and you don't talk about him being better than Michael Jordan, do you? I don't think there is a legitimate, intelligent argument for the best basketball player ever. I'm not going to say the most successful. That's obviously Jordan. Jordan is the greatest. Jordan is the Jordan changed the game on every end. Business, on the court, but as far as talent, as far as just basketball talent, I don't see an intelligent argument for anyone other than LeBron James. 21 years in and still playing at an MVP level. That doesn't happen. That aside, though, I thought the in-season tournament was awesome. I thought it was great, and you know what? The thing that I took out of it, honestly, was that Bron's not going anywhere. He's still one of the 5 best players in the league. B, Adam Silver's a genius, and I have said for many years that I think he is the best commissioner in all of sports. But this in-season tournament, when it was announced, you read about it, you read about the money these guys are getting for it, and you're just kind of like, okay, well, what's $500,000? What do these guys care? But honestly, I thought it was great. I thought it brought a lot of value to the NBA aside from the hideous hard courts that they had. But what did you think of it, Q?
I liked the courts. First of all, I thought it was kind of cool.
Oh, those are
I
horrible.
liked it. I liked it. I'm not the biggest NBA guy, and that's all you got to know about the in-season tournament is because I'm not the biggest NBA guy, and I watch more basketball in the month of December than I have ever. I think so, and then also, I mean, I think LeBron is. I mean, it's amazing. It's really starting to get. I don't know, man. I can't, like you said, I can't see an argument that's against him. The only arguments are the 6-0 in finals, and that let's be real, he dropped the finals against the Mavericks. That was a bad
Sure.
one, but
The Mavericks also ran through Kobe, and they ran through the Spurs with Duncan and Robinson too,
they did. I mean, they did.
or
I mean, that's
Duncan Parker and Ginobili. So it's like
yeah, not
that
Robinson,
wasn't the
but
only team that the Mavericks beat.
no, and there's facts both ways, and I understand it. And I'm too young. I was not watching basketball when Jordan was playing. So I tell myself I'm never going to make the argument ever again because it's like talking to a wall. But to me, I think LeBron's not only the best basketball player, he might be the best athlete I've watched. And that's saying something because I'm in St. Louis and
Mm-hmm.
I've watched Albert Pujols play. And Albert Pujols played baseball for the 11 seasons he was in St. Louis. It was undeniably the greatest hitting I mean, undeniably the greatest hitting you can put on, and well, the greatest playing because he won Gold Gloves too. So I think he might be the greatest athlete I've watched in a long time. American athlete, definitely up
Yeah.
there. I mean,
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think that's a bad take, honestly, because the things that
Worst.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say the worst takes are, well, he doesn't have this tenacity. He doesn't have it, and it's like you can't objectively measure that first of all. And now in the realm of podcasting, hey, we're doing a podcast. You have all of these guys that played against LeBron. Put that to bed. I watched
Right.
Jeff Teague say that the other day. I've watched multiple people like put that he doesn't have this tenacity. He doesn't have this whatever
Yeah.
you want, this chip on his shoulder. Just because a basketball player is an asshole to his teammates and everyone on the court
Yeah.
doesn't make him better. And let's
Right.
be real, he's an asshole, or he was.
Well,
That. Oh, sorry,
I
now I got rant.
no, you're fine. I heard something that Kevin Garnett said recently, and I love Kevin Garnett, one of my favorite players in the NBA to watch. He played against Jordan, played against LeBron.
Let's get him on.
Yeah, ticket. We're here for you. But he has even said like what he is doing, like, and again, this is one of the most fierce competitors in the NBA that they ever saw in Kevin Garnett. He literally said, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it was something along the lines of like, I'm watching as the biggest fan in the world right now. And how could you not? And like, so if you take into account, yes, he came out of high school, sure, whatever. He's played 21 years, 66,000 minutes in his NBA career.
No
You
one's
know how
going to touch it.
ridiculous that is? No one's going to touch that. No one's going to break the scoring record. No one's going to do it. And what I would say to, for the argument's sake of, the 6-0 in the finals thing, I already mentioned Havlicek, but let's talk about something else. 6-0 in the finals, sure. So was everybody else on the Bulls teams. It wasn't just MJ. MJ didn't win anything until Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson came to Chicago. And again, not taking anything away from how great he was. I think I am very privileged to be able to have watched Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett. I've watched some of the most amazing athletes in my entire life. But the guy didn't win until he had his, Robin with him. And Scottie Pippen does not get enough credit for how good he was as a two-way basketball player. He's crazy as fuck, like wild right now, but like
I was going to say it's probably because of this.
Yeah, well,
What's going on?
But like Michael didn't win without those two guys. And the whole teams were undefeated in the finals, not just him. So it's like you can't use that argument. You don't win unless you're Dirk Nowitzki in the finals the year that they won. Like you don't win by yourself. That doesn't happen. Kobe didn't win without Shaq and Pau Gasol.
I mean, that's another. Here's what I'll say to end this, because you said briefly, right? But
yes,
I will respectfully disagree if you say Michael's the better basketball player. I will not entertain any argument ever, and this is exactly what people want to hear. By the way, some suburban white kid talk about this, but I will not respect any other take that doesn't have LeBron at 1 or 2. If you try to put him behind Kobe, you're wrong. If you try to put him behind whoever else, you're wrong. You're just dead wrong. Actually. And I see that a lot. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think, what was Charles Barkley say? Charles Barkley said, like, come on, buddy. He says he's like not even a top 5 player or whatever. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and look, Kobe was an imitation of Michael Jordan that didn't do it as well. Rest his soul. Obviously, no disrespect, but like he was a copy of Michael Jordan that was not as good. LeBron James is a one of one. You've never seen something like this, and we might never see it again. I don't know, but yeah, in-season tournament, I rock with it. I liked it. Got me to watch more basketball than I have in probably 10 years. Literally, like it's been a long time. So kudos to Adam Silver on that. You keep saying we are fitness guys. This is a fitness show. So I want to talk to you about something in fitness that I've noticed lately. And I am going to name drop on this because I want to.
Good or bad?
So, let's just say it could go either way.
All right. So bad.
The thing I keep talking. Well, you think the worst of me. The thing I keep talking about with people when I'm at work is, the idea of simplicity, right? And I think you and I have talked about this off camera before, where simple is what makes things effective, and like the idea of making things complex to look pretty and look cute doesn't work. It's not necessary, right? So, and I will always preface this by saying I am not the best at anything in the world. I am not saying this is the only way to do things. I am just simply giving an opinion because I have a camera and a microphone, and for some reason, you nerds listen. When I see something that is directed at a community with a range of professional athlete to general fitness, and I just burped, I'm sorry. I'd love to be sponsored by Diet Mountain Dew, by the way. When I see something that is, direct and it's directed at this community, and it is predicated on like this eye-catching factor of what in the holy hell is going on. And I'm going to try to put a clip in here if I can work the technology to do it. But Dr. Joel Seedman.
Oh,
are you
God.
familiar? So,
I mean, goodness gracious, man.
So this is leading right into my pass of the week.
I might, dude. I might rant. You might give me the rant.
This is perfect. So, I I happened to be scrolling on the gram during my morning 2 one day this week, and I came across a video of Doctor, and I'm going to keep calling him Dr. Joel Seedman, standing on a bench, holding a trap bar in each hand, doing a half, 2/3 squat. I don't know. Have you seen this
He's
one?
he's all about 90-degree angles.
Right.
So
Okay.
It's a squat. It's supposed to be.
Correct. And I will also preface this by saying I don't think anyone out there has the gospel of Paul. Believe 1000%. Don't question anything. No one has that. What the fuck is going on? Like, what? Okay. The other thing that really chat my ass was, so he trains professional athletes. Great. I've worked with pro athletes too. It's a lot of fun. He had Chris Carson, former running back for the Seattle Seahawks.
Are we going to the neck injury thing?
Yeah, he was doing a trap bar deadlift, hitting him in the head with a physio ball. Why? What is this? Like, what is this trying to prove? You have a PhD. How?
Well, I don't know, man. I think
I'm
so. It's
like,
all clicks. He's even been on podcasts, and I, they say keep your enemies close. There's not many people that I don't like it. Well, that's not true at all. There's not many people that I actually despise in the fitness world. I think that still might not be true. Okay, anyway, he's top 5, and he's very
3, and he might not be 3.
Yeah, he might be 2 or 1, but he's very sports specific, and he tries to claim. And the issue with sports specific is if you are playing a sport, which Chris Carson was, or at least trying. I think he retired.
He had to retire because of neck injuries.
Right, you are getting all of the specific movements, stimulus that you need in that sport. If you try to get too sports specific, you're not in the weight room. You're essentially wasting time.
Right.
Because that's not how, like, my favorite example is balancing. People want to balance on those, whatever they're called.
Bosu balls.
Thank you, Bosu balls. And they want to balance, and they go, this helps with your balance. And in reality, it doesn't. Because when are you walking on something like that? You're never walking on something like that. You don't play sports in something like that. You're not sitting in something. Unless your house is set up to that. I don't know why it would be. You want an accident? Stop it. But he's taken it to the 10th degree, and he's been on podcasts, to finish my first thought, specifically saying that I do this to get clicks at first. It's one of, yes, Andy, your hand raised.
I want to just interrupt you really quick while I'm listening to your rant. I was scrolling on Instagram, and I just have to show this appreciation to our guy Kyler Gordon, who's having a Merry Christmas at Raising Cane's right now, and I just thought this was awesome. So carry on.
Okay, Kyler Gordon, by the way, good ball player, really
Yes.
good ball player.
Yes,
They
carry on.
well. I don't even know where I was at. But no, he's been on podcasts.
Yeah, balance. You're talking about balance.
He's been on podcasts saying he does this for the click, so people can so they can stop their scrolling and then initially come into his program and say, "What's this about?" And he says he does like 80% of the traditional stuff and then 20% of the. And now I'm botching those numbers. Whatever. It's still ridiculous. You're like, we need to stop. We need to stop with that. You're giving people a false impression of what actual effective training is. And because you said it, these are pro athletes, they can afford whatever training. So these people are essentially paying this guy to snake oil salesman, like paying this guy thousands of dollars, I'm sure, to be a snake oil salesman. And then go, hey, look at this. This is my one of one freak athlete ex-running back in the NFL, Chris Carson. If he can do this, why aren't you doing this? You want to train like a pro athlete? Like this is no, yeah. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely. And then he got absolutely torched. If you want to just watch an interview, Dr. Mike Israetel.
Oh, that's a great one.
One of my favorite interviews. He was brought on Mark Bell's podcast, unbeknownst to Joel Seedman, to debate him about full range of motion versus his 90 degree, because that's his thing. His joint angles should be 90 degrees. You're the most strong in that 90 degree. And there's no reason for you to ever go past 90 degrees because you don't train. Hey, I don't know if you've ever watched a sport before, but these people definitely go past 90 degrees. Are you kidding me? That's the thing that blows my mind. He's adding sports specific trying to weighted movements to 90 degrees to guys that have to go past 90 degrees on a regular. I don't get it.
Like you can't run if you don't.
It doesn't make any sense. Joel Seedman is definitely. Sorry, Joel. You kind of suck.
But... No, I'm not sorry. Fuck that guy. Like I'll be the first one to say it. Okay. And not even from a standpoint of training, but from a standpoint of like you mentioned the false impression. Like again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know every single thing about training. I'm very smart. I'm good at what I do. I'm confident, but I couldn't even market myself like that because my whole thing with training is like, if I'm going to have you do something and I'm going to put it out there for the internet world, the interwebs to see, I don't care that he has, he's got 500,000 followers, or whatever. I would bet a lot of those are following for laughs and for trolling, which I am. So that's fine. But, hold on, I got a burp.
Awesome.
But where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So I have like 1,300 people that follow me. But the thing I try to do is when I post something of a client of mine or an athlete of mine, like, you're going through a full range of motion movement because your sport takes a full range of motion movement. I mean, and you and I have talked about this before when it comes to like the NFL and injuries. People have soft tissue and ligament injuries because they don't train under load in the full range of the fucking movement enough.
Well, they don't train under appropriate load, period. How about that?
Well, right. That's a whole different conversation.
That's a different, but you're right. I think you could core, like, it's very hard to nail down a specific reason. It's actually impossible to nail down a specific reason why someone gets injured. It's right. Well documented. It's multifactorial. It just is. I went up the stairs. I popped my back. Well, that's not. You didn't do that while you're walking up the stairs. That's a culmination of things going on.
Yeah.
It might have happened. You might have felt that, but you're right. I can't. The mental gymnastics this specific individual has to go through to justify to himself when he clearly sees like any study, any research, all the literature. He's a PhD. I hope he knows how to read these PubMed articles or any of these peer-reviewed literature or these papers. Excuse me.
Mm.
He's either it's negligence or it's incompetence. And either way, you're hiring. He's getting paid thousands and thousands of dollars by these pro athletes.
Mm-hmm.
It is a travesty. People always wonder like why. I literally, as we're on this podcast, I'm taking a pivot here. I just had someone message me, "Hey, Rogan did this thing. Should I do it too?" And it's like, goodness gracious, man! Like, this is the reason why I like to do things like this. If we are fitness guys, it, the amount of misinformation or the clickbaity BS that people may or may not, unbeknownst to themselves, know the reason or can justify the reason why they're doing something. It's unbelievable. It's way up
Mm-hmm.
there, and it's all for social media. It's all for this. There's a spectrum of how much attention do I want. We want attention. We just do. We're humans. We're doing a podcast. Yeah. We wouldn't want attention. We wouldn't be doing a podcast if we didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to. Andy and I are not sitting here trying to sell you a $2,000 friggin' training package that we're going to do only 90 degrees because.
I mean, look, if you want me to hit you in the head with a physio ball for $2,000, I'll do it. But you're not going to get anything out of it. Like,
yeah, no. I'm not going to tell you there's any benefit to it, but I will hit you in the head with a physio ball.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's my pass of the week. If I'm going to gas, if I'm going to be fired up about anything, it's Diet Mountain Dew. It's Diet Mountain Dew. So.
Then I'll follow the same. I drink tea a lot now when I do these, so I'm gassing tea. I think it's a nice little wind down.
This Diet Mountain Dew is really hitting hard. So we
did. You got to cut this, and you have to tag Diet Mountain Dew.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do. Sane Podcast is now brought to you by Diet Mountain Dew. When you need to be refreshed, if you're on the go, if you're at home, if you're having a meal, or if you're sitting on a podcast, do it right. Do the do. Diet Mountain Dew, just for you. That's the clip right there.
Okay. I hope they reach out. I really do. We need to see.
Hey, you never know, right? Diet Mountain Dew, we love it.
And artificial sweeteners don't give you cancer.
No, aspartame's great. Better hydration properties than normal tap water. Just going to throw that out
probably.
There. No, it's legitimate. The science and literature is proven. I'll send you the article.
Oh, please do.
So we did get a couple Q&As.
Oh.
For this week.
Let's go.
So I'm going to read you the first one.
Oh, here we go.
Why can Q eat the equivalent of a baby hippo?
I have an eating disorder, probably. Yeah. Who said that?
That is from Nick Hager.
Oh, shout out Nick. That's my guy. I guess we don't have to use.
He did put a couple serious ones in, so we'll go with those. But I thought that was funny.
Nick, it's because I probably have an eating disorder, and I was a fat kid, so I could throw down. I could still throw down.
Fat boy red. So here's a pretty good question, actually. Is low T just as dangerous as supernatural levels? I don't think it's worded right, but it sparks a good question. So basically, is low T truly just as dangerous as blasting testosterone?
Let me preface this by I'm not an endocrinologist, so
I'm not either. But
do with that with what you will. My thought is no, it's absolutely not, and because. Well, then I guess we have to define what is dangerous. But I would say blasting yourself with pharmaceuticals, probably more dangerous than low T. So I have low T based on my age and my weight, everything, where I'm at is what I'm trying to say. On the spectrum, here you go. And not the spectrum that you think of, but the spectrum of testosterone. So I have a 300 to 400 T score, whatever you'd like to call it, level.
Mine was 359, by the way.
And I feel fine. I feel great. I'm not tired all the time. Now that's one end of one, one example. But testosterone is not correlated, believe it or not, is not correlated with your ability to build muscle, burn fat more efficiently, and have more energy. Everyone, first of all, is there's a very large spectrum for what is acceptable testosterone, men and women, actually. Obviously women produce testosterone, we all know this, but it's not going to, unless you're dangerously low, it's not going to affect your ability to burn fat, build muscle. Also, we got to talk about like T tests. Free testosterone within a day has such a peak and valley peak and valley attitude, if you like to call it. So after a workout and before a workout, your testosterone can be vastly different if you test it.
Well, it can also
So,
be affected by what you eat too. So, and
I mean, if it's affected what you eat, what you drink, how
yeah,
much sleep you got the next day. So if I had
this is not raising my testosterone.
no
It's raising my
happiness,
serotonin level.
dopamine,
Yeah, dopamine.
so dopamine. There you go.
But to kind of like piggyback and add a little bit to what you said. So my testosterone was 359 when I had it done.
Okay.
The you mentioned the spectrum range of what T is. I believe it's like 290 to 1100 or something like that. It's a very wide range.
I'm gonna make sure.
And
I'm gonna find it.
that's
Go ahead.
and that's the problem with measuring testosterone. Testosterone does have an effect on a lot of the other systems in your body. It does affect your cognitive function, it does affect your libido, it does affect your mood, things like that. And the problem with measuring it by this range is like, so if you look at Q and I next to each other, we're both handsome, number one, but number two, I'm much bigger than Q is. So my normal is going to be different than his, and that's not an insult. It just is what it is. Like Q's normal is going to be different than the person next to him. So I am actually talking right now to a hormone replacement therapy clinic called Cormed, trying to figure out myself because I am fatigued all the time. And yes, part of that is being a parent, but I am fatigued more than that. I'm tired. I'm like, for the past 3 years, I've been experiencing literal symptoms of low T. Now, my thought on, is low T just as dangerous as blasting? No. Is it potentially dangerous? Yes. But you would have to be extremely low. Like, for example, my friend who just did a bodybuilding show back in September, his testosterone levels came back at like 46 the week of his show. Granted, that's complete depletion. That's literally like 3-4 days before his bodybuilding show. But if your levels are low in the range, whatever the fucking
It's
range it is.
three. I just looked at. So you were close. It's 300 nanograms per deciliter to 1,000. So
Oh, that's pretty close.
you're very close.
So,
But continue.
but basically what my rant is trying to summarize is like,
I'm gonna
if you have the ability to get in touch with a true hormone replacement clinic and an endocrinologist and compare what they find, because the endocrinologist is not going to do the full 28-point panel. A hormone replacement clinic is, because they're going to look at your testosterone, T3, T4, everything else that encompasses. And what I encourage anyone over the age of 30 to do once you start potentially feeling symptoms is go get tested. I'm 35. I am literally to the point where science and literature now says go figure it out, because your natural levels do start to decline. Now, where I kind of go to the flip side of that is, if you are still able to perform your daily functions as a person, parent, employee, whatever, to the best of your ability, you're probably fine. You might just have to tweak some of your dieting, some of your sleeping, things like that. But if you're truly noticing a decline in cognitive function, in your libido, in your mood swings, in your performance in the gym, in the bedroom, in life, like, yeah, you might have low T, and it might actually be detrimental to you, not to the point of like you're going to, hopefully you're not going to keel over, but honestly, things happen within the body that we can't predict. And testosterone does have an effect on a lot, but there's more to it than just like getting an injection of T in your butt cheek. Like,
so I totally agree, and I'm gonna walk something back real fast that I said already. So I when I say is low T dangerous, yes, it is. But I'm assuming that if you are getting tested multiple times a year and it keeps coming back like dangerously low, then yes, it's going to affect your ability to burn fat and build
right.
muscle. I guess what I am saying is my T, if it is low on the spectrum, 300 nanograms per deciliter, it's not, and that's just who I am genetically. That's not affecting me if I want to build muscle, burn fat. Now, if you have low T because of I don't know, environmental issues, like you've, I don't know, been exposed to whatever the hell that is going to essentially ruin your endocrine system, or if you've run yourself ragged because of a series of weight cutting incidents, then yes. But what I mean is, I guess we have to define, is low T is not the same across the board. That's all I'm trying to
Correct.
say.
That's
Versus
and
me
that's
versus you, and my
right.
T is technically low, but it's not affecting me to build muscle, burn fat. Now I am a skinnier
Right.
dude, and I would love to build a little bit more muscle, but that's not because of T. That's not
Right.
because that's
And
because
that's
X, Y,
and that
Z.
was the point of my rant too, is like, don't go by what textbook ranges are. Go do your work, do your due diligence.
Yeah.
And like, cause again, I am technically within the normal range, but I know for me, because I am a bigger person, my normal is different. I'm low for what I feel because of a multitude of reasons, not just like, hey, I want to look better, feel better, all that kind of stuff. Like, no, I legitimately feel like I am not performing my best all the time. And it's
If
been
you're an
like that for a few
endocrinologist,
years.
message
Huh?
us and come on the. If you're an endocrinologist, message us, come on the podcast because I'd
Yeah,
love to
let's
know
let's
more.
get an endocrinologist. But good question. There's just no real concrete answer, but good question. I like it. One more, and then we will wrap up with the question of the week. At what point is caffeine more detrimental than beneficial for performance enhancing? Again, pretty good question.
Great question. If you're not sleeping well,
Yep.
that's probably it.
Yeah.
If
That's
you're not getting anything out of your caffeine, I'm not gonna lie. Today, I took caffeine at 3. That's way late for me.
yeah.
I didn't get much out of it, and
Yeah.
that's not ideal. So
Yeah.
there's a tolerance buildup, and sleep is number one.
Mhm.
And if it is affecting your sleep, then you need to back down. Caffeine has a half life from it's very wide. I think it's 4 to 8 hours. So
Yeah. 4 to
meaning
8, 3 to 6, something like that.
meaning like if I had 200 milligrams at 3 p.m., which I did on the low end, say 3 hours, I'm still going to have 100 milligrams of caffeine floating around in me around 5 and 6, and then I'm going
Mhm.
to have 50 around blah blah blah. So you got to be mindful of that. People say, "Well, I have a cup of coffee at dinner." Well, you might be sensitive to caffeine, just like
Right.
testosterone. There's a large degree of variance from person to person.
Right.
I'm sensitive to it.
Yeah. I would.
Anything to
I
add on
would.
that?
I would agree. Maybe like the sleep is the biggest one, and then honestly, like if for some reason you are like unable to focus, like if it makes you past the point of like for me, caffeine is just part of my day, right? Like I drink a lot of coffee. I might have an energy drink. Caffeine
Like
for
Mountain
me,
Dew.
yeah. But sponsor us. But for me, it really doesn't do a whole lot other than just kind of like I like drinking the things that have caffeine in it. There's science that have proven that caffeine and actually nicotine are two good supplements for human beings to take. Obviously, within the ranges, like you mentioned, it just depends on the person. Like, is it affecting your sleeping? Is probably the number one. I would say probably the other is, are you experiencing any like anxiety issues, because caffeine can directly relate to um, your adrenal response. So if your adrenal response is sensitive and you get jittery and you don't feel good, then yeah, it's probably too much. But if you're gonna sit around and have a couple cups of coffee, probably call it 200 milligrams every single day, you're gonna be fine. Like caffeine, the study that shows how much caffeine would an average person, again, there's always outliers, so not everybody's going to fall into this, but an average person have to have in one sitting to be detrimental to like, their cardiac health is like the equivalent to 47 cups of coffee right there in one sitting. I
It's
don't think anybody's drinking that much.
Yeah. I wonder. I've read that it's 2 grams. Like 2 grams is like I think they do like, I don't want to call it clinical doses, but 2 full grams at a time. I mean, that would send you over the. I would die, I think. But whatever.
I would
Don't do
I
that.
would either shit my pants or be able to fly to the moon without a jetpack at some point. Like
Yeah.
that's yeah.
I
But
do
good.
have one more.
Yeah,
Do have someone asked me a question for our show. It was a
go for it.
woman, so I feel like it's different. In what ways, if any, Should women and men differ their workout routines?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a
So,
great question.
you mind me taking the lead on this one?
Go
And
ahead.
then you can follow?
Yeah, I'll chime in.
So, I'm not gonna spend too much time because there's a lot of nuance. I think we could have probably actually do a full episode on this at some point. It's a very good question, whoever
Mhm.
whoever asked that one. Um, the main differences that women and men will see is in how much volume they can handle physiologically. Women are typically capable of handling more volume in the training session and in the training week than men. A specific example is like bench pressing. Um, it's just the way physiologically women are made up. They can recover faster from more volume over the duration of a session and over the week. Other than that, honestly, I don't train women and men differently at all unless there's very specific things. And like one example I'll give you is like a deadlift. Just with the angle of women's femurs, we might favor the sumo deadlift over the conventional deadlift just for comfort reasons. But other than that, I personally don't really do anything different other than manage the volume and intensity of the training sessions.
I have to. I was going to go way more broad than you and say nothing, because I agree. And the reason there's been studies to show, and I again I haven't looked at this in a pretty long time, but
Who asked that question, by the
women,
way?
Lauren, shout Lauren, um, women don't, or they women partition nutrients a little better, is what this study showed, because of their ability to cycle blood, or they get better blood flow. Is what I've read. Again, I think I might be talking on my butt there, but that makes sense to me. I have noticed that a little bit. I feel like women do handle a lot more volume, sets times reps, more than men do. I think men just get freaking, and that might be an ego thing too. Honestly, it might just be like
Sure.
men want to lift heavy stuff and then they get burnt out. But yeah, no, it doesn't have to. Let's back to our original conversation of fitness. It doesn't have to get sexy and complicated if you're a woman. Lift the same stuff, especially if you're comfortable doing it. And say you want to build muscle. There's no, like, if I had you, Andy, versus this Lauren gal who wanted to do the same thing, I would most likely train you guys the same exact way, as long as you're comfortable.
Yeah. So. Again, very, very good question. Topic that we talk about all the time at the gym I coach at. So, Lauren, good question. I like that one. All right. Well, let's get into the, our segment of every show. The what keeps us sane, from this past week. And Q, I will throw it to you first.
What keeps me sane? Believe it or not, I try not to write this one down and think about it, so I go on the fly. I'm gonna go with scary movies. I know that's a really weird one. I love scary movies. I'm actually in the middle of one now, which I don't like doing. I don't like starting one and stopping.
Which one?
My dog was being an ass. Oh gosh, it's on Hulu. It's called No One Will Save You, or it's about aliens.
Oh,
that
one was good. That was good.
Was it? Okay, because I haven't.
I liked it.
I'm 30 minutes in-ish, so I still don't know like what's the play. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I liked it.
What keeps you sane, Mr. Andy?
Yeah. So for me, music. I don't drive a ton of distance, but I drive a lot throughout the day because I go like work, home, see my kids, take them to wrestling, whatever. And I always have music playing in the car. And again, we could do a whole segment, a whole show on music. By the way, shout out to our guy Steve Rodriguez from last week.
Great interview.
Dope interview. Thank you to everyone who's listened to that show. Thank you to Steve again. But I find a lot of peace in music, and that comes from any genre, honestly. Whether it be something like Steve's blues music, which the song Alice has been on repeat a lot in my car. I'll put it in the episode. I'm also gonna put the Joel Seedman video or the podcast link to this episode so you guys can listen to what Q talked about. But I get a lot of comfort from music, from jamming out in the car, jamming out at my house, and sometimes with music it can be emotional. Sometimes with music it can be just fun, but music plays a big part in it. And we're gonna end with this. top 3 songs that you've listened to this week. Go.
I was just about to chime in. Here's the craziest part. I don't listen to music right now. I
hate
haven't
you.
really outside of Steve. No. Listen, I listen to Japanese garden music in the morning, and I play podcasts essentially the whole day if I have time. I'm just on. I go through weird kicks where I'm in like a zone, and then I'm out of the music zone. I'll only listen to podcasts and vice versa. If I had to pick a song, Steve Rodriguez's "Bad Thing" song is one of my favorites right now.
Usually you post some.
Not rap.
Usually you post some heaters on your story though. So
I get multiple middle-aged women messaging me, say, I try to listen to your song. What are you listening to? I'm sorry. I like Big X to Plug. I like T Grizzly. I like all those guys. So sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good.
What about you? Top 3?
Top 3 this week. Alice by our guy Steve. I mean that's a straight banger. Number 2 would probably be Hate Being Sober by Chief Keef. That's a good workout song. And then number 3, it's been between Teddy Swims' Goodbye's Been Good to You
that song's
and
amazing.
Def Leppard Photograph.
Oh, interesting. Eclectic.
Yeah.
Very eclectic.
Yeah, I do. Like I told you, I'm all over the board. I got blues, I got Chicago drill music, I got whatever you call Teddy. Still want you on the podcast, by the way. And I got 80s rock. So it's like I don't know, but that's I'm all over the place. I am also a big podcast listener too. I always have something going on playing on my Spotify. Let's just say that.
Yep. Same.
Anyway, looks like that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys as always for tuning in, listening, supporting. If you haven't already, please hit the follow button on Instagram at @Sane_pod, on Spotify, on Apple Music, on YouTube, on Google Podcasts, wherever the hell you listen. Please hit the follow button, subscribe button. Send us comments if you like it, if you don't like it. If you want to see Q do a podcast shirtless, he'll probably do it. But for real, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all the support, and I guess we'll see y'all next week.